Dr. Mason Cade was not used to silence. On Earth there was always noise, machines, traffic, people. But now inside the Zevrian starship's reception hall, everything felt strangely quiet. The hall was vast, filled with smooth silver walls that glowed faintly. Strange symbols shimmered on the floor, and tall crystal towers stood like statues. Alien diplomats moved carefully, their long robes brushing the ground. This was humanity's first official meeting with the Zevrians, a powerful and mysterious race. Mason was chosen as one of the cultural observers. He was not a soldier or a commander. He was a researcher, a man who studied human behavior and how it might look to outsiders. He expected difficult talks, serious rules, and perhaps even hostility. What he did not expect was curiosity. Among the delegation stood Lyra. She was younger than the other Zevrians, though still taller than Mason by almost a head. Her skin shimmered faintly like liquid glass, and her eyes shifted colors depending on the light, sometimes green, sometimes gold. Unlike her elders who moved with slow dignity, Lyra leaned forward with bright, eager eyes. She did not watch the ambassadors. She watched Mason. When he unpacked a small bag, she tilted her head. Inside were ordinary items: water bottle, notebook, energy bar. Mason thought nothing of it, but Lyra's gaze locked on them as though they were treasures. "What is that?" she asked suddenly, pointing a long finger at the foil wrapper of the bar. The hall grew still. Zevrian diplomats frowned. Humans glanced at one another, unsure if she had broken some rule. But Lyra was not embarrassed. She stepped closer to Mason and repeated the question. "This?" Mason held it up. "It's food, a human snack, compressed nutrients, sweetened with chocolate." Lyra's eyes brightened. "Food? Human food?" Mason hesitated. He had been told not to share anything without permission. Still, her innocent wonder disarmed him. "Yes, it's just a small thing. Nothing important." Lyra tilted her head again. "If it is nothing important, then why does your voice sound protective?" Mason blinked. He had no answer. Before he could speak, Lyra leaned closer. "Human," she said softly, almost like a child asking for a toy. "What's this? Let me taste it." Gasps spread across the hall. The Zevrian counselors murmured disapproval. Sharing food was not part of the protocol, yet Lyra looked at him with such open interest that Mason felt caught between rules and honesty. He unwrapped the bar slowly, broke a piece, and offered it. Lyra studied it as if it were an artifact from another world. Carefully, she placed it in her mouth. For a moment, her face was unreadable. Then her eyes widened, flashing golden. She made a sound between surprise and delight. "Sweet," she whispered. "Dense, but gentle. It melts and coats my tongue. This is alive in the mouth." The human delegation chuckled nervously. Mason could not help smiling. To him, it was just a cheap snack. To her, it was discovery. The Zevrian council leader stepped forward, his robe shimmering with authority. "Lyra," he said sternly, "control your impulses. These humans are not here to amuse you." Lyra bowed her head respectfully, but her eyes never left Mason's. "Forgive me, Elder, but I do not think this is amusement. I think this is understanding." The Elder said nothing more, though his disapproval filled the air. Mason tucked the wrapper back into his bag. He felt uneasy, but also strangely proud. For the first time since arriving, he felt that humanity had something unique to offer. Not technology, not power, but the simple joy of taste. As the formal talks began, Mason tried to focus. The human ambassador spoke about trade, resources, and peace. The Zevrians answered with calm, precise words. The hall was filled with politics, numbers, and promises. But Mason noticed that Lyra was not listening to any of it. Instead, she watched the humans' small gestures, the way they shifted in their chairs, the way they whispered to each other, the way they sipped from cups of water. Her curiosity was endless. When one human delegate clicked a pen, Lyra leaned forward again. "What is that sound? What makes it move?" she whispered toward Mason. It's just a pen, he said quietly. A tool for writing. Her eyes sparkled. May I see? Cautiously, he passed it to her. She clicked it once, twice, and gasped softly as if she had discovered a hidden machine. She scribbled a line on her sleeve, saw the mark, and laughed. It leaves symbols. It carries memory in liquid form. Again, the Zevrian elders frowned. Mason could almost feel their irritation. Yet Lyra's wonder did not fade. Hours passed. The meeting ended with no real progress. The ambassadors seemed frustrated. Trade agreements were postponed. Yet when the humans prepared to leave, Lyra hurried after Mason. You, she said softly, blocking his path. You carry small things, but they are not small. They are windows. Mason looked at her carefully. Windows. Yes, windows into your people. The way you eat, the way you write, the way you make sound with tools. We see your ships, your weapons, your cities, but these small things, they show us your spirit. Mason was struck by her words. He had never thought of a pen or a snack as anything more than objects. Yet to her, they were revelations. Before they parted, Lyra smiled faintly. Human, I wish to learn more. I will ask many questions. You will answer, yes? Mason hesitated, then nodded. I'll answer. She tilted her head once more, her golden eyes glowing. Good. Then I will discover what makes humans special. Not in your armies, not in your stars. But here, she touched the wrapper of the chocolate bar gently. In your small things. As she left, Mason realized something. Humanity might not impress the Zevrians with power, but perhaps with something else. Curiosity, creativity, and the beauty, hidden in everyday life. He had come expecting fear and formality. Instead, he found an alien girl who looked at a candy bar as though it held the secrets of the universe. And for the first time, Mason felt that humanity had a chance not only to survive among the stars, but to be remembered. The Zevrian reception hall was quieter than usual. The second day of talks had begun, and the air felt heavy. Humans sat on one side of the long table, Zevrians on the other. Between them hovered holographic screens filled with numbers, charts, and proposals. The leaders spoke politely, but Mason could see the frustration in their voices. Progress was slow. Mason tried to stay focused, but once again Lyra was there. She sat near the younger observers of her people, though her attention was not on the trade agreements. Her eyes wandered toward the humans, always curious, always searching. When one of the human aides brought a tray of sealed food packs for the delegation, Lyra's gaze immediately locked on them. She leaned forward, her golden eyes glowing faintly. Mason felt her stare and his heart sank. He knew what was coming. Human, she whispered across the quiet table, ignoring the serious tone of the negotiations. What is inside those containers? They carry scent. Mason hesitated. It's just food. Lunch rations. Lyra tilted her head. Food again. Different shapes, different smells. Will you show me? The human ambassador shot Mason a warning look, shaking his head. This was not the time. But Lyra's voice carried a strange mix of innocence and insistence. Even the Zevrian counselors turned to glare at her. Lyra, one of the elders said sharply, restrain yourself. These sessions are for leaders, not for children's games. But Lyra did not back down. She folded her hands calmly and replied, Elder, it is not a game. If we wish to know these humans, should we not learn from what they eat and drink? Their lives are written in these simple things. Mason was caught between two fires. If he ignored her, she might feel insulted. If he answered, the elders might accuse him of breaking rules. Finally, he sighed and slid one of the ration packs toward her. It was a small sealed box with a label, pasta with tomato sauce. Lyra lifted it as though it were a relic. She pressed a button, and the pack hissed open, steam rising. The smell of tomatoes filled the air. Lyra's eyes widened. She leaned closer, inhaling deeply. It is warm, like sunlight caught in water, sweet and sharp at once. She took a careful spoonful and tasted it. Silence fell across the hall. The human side looked nervous, the Zevrian side horrified. Yet Lyra chewed slowly, then smiled. "It sings," she whispered, soft strands coated in red memory. "This taste is like a song that clings to the tongue. I have never known food like this." Some of the human aides chuckled quietly, but the Zevrian elders were furious. One slammed his palm on the table. "Enough," he thundered. "This is disgraceful. Our council did not come to watch childish experiments. You shame your people, Lyra." Lyra turned to him, her voice calm but strong. "Do I shame us by learning? Do I shame us by asking why humans make such things when we do not? Is it shameful to seek truth in small matters?" The elder's expression grew dark. "You risk contaminating your mind with their habits. These humans are not to be admired. Their worlds are young, their customs crude." Mason felt anger stir inside him. He stood, his voice steady. "With respect, Elder, you are mistaken. Our customs may be simple, yes, but they are not crude. Food is more than survival for us. It is family. It is memory. It is a way to share life." Lyra Unda. The hall grew tense. The human ambassador whispered urgently, "Dr. Cade, sit down." The third day of talks began with tension heavy in the air. The human delegation sat stiffly, their faces set with caution. The Zevrian counselors wore cold expressions, their crystal-like robes reflecting light across the chamber. Everyone spoke, politely, but it was the kind of politeness that hides anger. Mason noticed it immediately. The earlier arguments about food and curiosity had not been forgotten. Some Zevrian leaders now looked at him with thinly veiled distrust, but Lyra sat near the back, her golden eyes steady, fixed on him like a quiet promise that he was not alone. Humans presented trade offers, raw minerals, medicines, new energy systems. The Zevrians responded with their own terms, strict, demanding, and often dismissive. Several times Mason noticed that the Zevrians tried to twist human words, as though searching for weakness. It was diplomacy, yes, but it felt more like a hunt. Then the sabotage happened. During one exchange, a Zevrian delegate interrupted, holding up a datapad. "We have discovered a message," he announced coldly. "Proof that the humans intend to deceive us." Gasps spread across the chamber. The hologram showed lines of text, plans for humans to trick the Zevrians with false promises, to steal resources without fair trade. The Zevrian elder's eyes narrowed with triumph. "You see? They cannot be trusted." The human ambassador jumped to his feet. "This is a lie. We never wrote such messages." But the text glowed in the air, undeniable to the council. The Zevrians murmured in anger. Some demanded the talks be ended at once. Mason's stomach dropped. He knew this was sabotage. Someone had created these false messages to destroy any chance of peace, but who? And how could they prove it? Before the shouting grew louder, Lyra suddenly stood. Her voice cut through the noise. "I do not believe this." The council froze. Elders turned toward her, their faces filled with shock and disapproval. "Lyra," one hissed, "sit down. This is not your place." But she did not. She stepped forward, her robe glimmering as her eyes burned with gold light. "I have watched these humans," she said firmly. "I have listened to them. They do not hide themselves in false ways. They show their hearts in the smallest things," one elder scoffed. "You speak of snacks and toys again?" "Yes," Lyra answered boldly. "Of snacks, of pens, of music. I watched Dr. Cade defend what you call crude habits. I tasted their food, and I felt their memories in it. I saw how their tools carry symbols, how they make sound into song. These are not lies. These are truths, woven into every part of their life." She turned to the council. "Do you think such people would build secret plots in the shadows when their strength is in sharing openly? Do you think a species that turns simple grain into bread, simple beans into drink, simple sound into music, would waste time hiding behind tricks? No, they create They share, they adapt. That is their way. The room grew still. Even the humans looked at her in wonder. Mason's chest tightened. Lyra was speaking not just for him but for all of humanity. An elder frowned. Your words are poetic but empty. How can a taste or a tool prove their innocence? Lyra's gaze did not waver. Because it shows who they are. You judge them by their machines and their armies. I judge them by how they live. And I say, this message is false because it does not match the people I have seen. For a moment, silence ruled. Then Mason stepped forward. She is right. We humans may not be perfect, but our strength is not in deceit. Our strength is in making the small things powerful. We take the useless rock and turn it into shelter. We take empty land and grow food. We take silence and fill it with song. We adapt, we create, and we survive. That is who we are. He pointed at the glowing message. This was created to divide us. Look closer at the code. I know you will find it does not carry human design. The Zevrian technicians hesitated, then began scanning. Lines of alien script scrolled across their displays. Slowly, their expressions changed. It is true, one admitted reluctantly. The code does not match human patterns, it carries fragments of Zevrian encryption. A shocked murmur swept through the council. Someone among their own people had tried to sabotage the talks. The elders looked unsettled. Their certainty was broken. Some demanded an investigation. Others remained silent, unwilling to admit their mistake. But the damage was already done. Lyra and Mason had turned suspicion into doubt. As the meeting adjourned in confusion, Lyra walked beside Mason. Her steps were quick, her face bright with quiet victory. You see, she whispered. They tried to paint you as deceivers, but I knew the truth. Humans build trust in small things. That cannot be faked. Mason smiled faintly. You defended us when even our own words weren't enough. Thank you, Lyra. She tilted her head. Do not thank me, I only spoke what was clear. My elders look at the size of your ships, but I look at the size of your heart, and I see strength they cannot yet imagine. Mason chuckled softly. Sometimes I forget we even have that. Lyra's eyes glowed warmly. Then I will remind you. They walked in silence for a moment. Around them, Zevrian guards and aides whispered, some in admiration, others in anger. Lyra had broken tradition, challenged her elders, and defended humans in front of the council. For her, there would be consequences. Yet she did not seem afraid. She carried herself with calm certainty, as though her path was already clear. Mason realized something as he watched her. This was no longer just curiosity. Lyra was becoming a bridge between two peoples, two ways of seeing the universe. And in that moment, he knew the future had shifted, not because of armies, not because of trade, but because one alien girl had tasted chocolate and pasta, clicked a pen, and seen humanity's heart in the smallest of things. The station floated silently above the blue curve of a planet below. It was supposed to be a safe place for peace talks, but safety was always an illusion in space. Mason knew this the moment the alarms began. A sharp siren echoed through the halls, followed by flashing red lights. Zevrian voices shouted across the chamber. A guard rushed to the council, his face pale. Energy surge in the central reactor, he cried. Systems are failing. Life support is unstable. The words dropped like a stone. Immediately, the councilors panicked. Orders clashed. Some demanded evacuation. Others argued it was too dangerous to launch ships while the reactor shook. The human delegation exchanged worried glances. Mason felt his chest tighten. If the reactor went critical, the whole station and everyone on it would be lost. Lyra turned to him, her golden eyes steady. What do humans do in such times? She asked. Mason forced a breath. We don't wait. We fix. He left the chamber at once, heading for the reactor levels. The human ambassador shouted after him, Dr. Cade, stop. That's not your responsibility. But Mason ignored it. Responsibility didn't matter when lives were at risk. The corridors grew hotter the farther he went. Sparks leapt from walls. The hum of machinery had turned into a deep, angry growl. Several Zevrian engineers stood near the sealed door to the reactor chamber, arguing loudly over procedure. None of them dared to enter. "We must wait for the full diagnostic," one said. "No, we must shut everything down at once," argued another. "If we act without protocol, the council will punish us." Mason pushed through them. "Protocols won't matter if you're all dead." The engineers turned to glare, but Lyra stepped forward beside him. "Let him pass," she commanded. "He understands what to do." Reluctantly, they moved aside. Mason opened the emergency panel. The air that rushed out was scorching, filled with the smell of burned wires. Inside, the reactor pulsed with unstable light, cracks of energy racing across the conduits. Lyra shielded her face, but she did not step back. "What now?" she asked. Mason scanned the chaos. He didn't have Zevrian tools. He didn't understand all their systems, but he understood problems and how to improvise. His mind worked quickly. "The surge is feeding itself," he muttered. "We need to cut the loop, force a discharge before it overloads." He grabbed a bundle of discarded cables, stripped their ends with his teeth, and tied them together. It was crude, dangerous, but it might buy time. Lyra watched in awe. "You make tools from scraps?" "Humans always do," Mason said, sweat dripping down his face. "We survive by making do." She stepped closer. "Tell me what to do. I will help." For a second, Mason hesitated. She was young, untrained, but her gaze was fierce, not afraid. He nodded. "Hold this cable steady. Don't let it touch the wrong side, or the surge will fry us both." Lyra gripped the cable with steady hands. Sparks danced over her silver skin, but she did not flinch. "It stings," she admitted, "but it is nothing." Mason crawled deeper, pulling panels open, connecting wires, rerouting power. The heat was unbearable, but he kept working. His mind focused only on the problem, the way humans always had. One step at a time, one idea leading to the next. Finally, he shouted, "Now, push the connector into that socket." Lyra obeyed. The reactor screamed, light bursting like lightning across the chamber. For a terrifying moment, Mason thought they had failed, but then the roar quieted. The pulsing light steadied, shrinking back into its core. The alarms faded. The oppressive heat began to cool. It was over. Mason fell back, coughing from the smoke. Lyra dropped the cable and knelt beside him, her eyes glowing with triumph. "You did it," she whispered. "We did it," Mason corrected, his voice rough. "You kept steady when it mattered." The Zevrian engineers finally rushed in, staring, in disbelief at the patched wires and makeshift fixes. One muttered, "Impossible." The station slowly returned to normal after the crisis. Lights glowed steady again, and the humming of the repaired reactor filled the halls like a heartbeat. But though the danger had passed, the atmosphere inside the council chamber was heavier than ever. The Zevrian elders gathered once more, their robes gleaming, their faces sharp with pride and unease. The human delegation sat across from them, tired but calm. Mason sat quietly at the back, still sore from burns on his arms, but his eyes were steady. He knew this meeting was different. Something had shifted. The council leader rose. His voice echoed across the chamber. "The reactor has been stabilized, lives were spared. For this we are grateful. Yet it is troubling that it required such reckless action." Whispers ran through the Zevrian side. Some agreed, others hesitated. Mason could see doubt in their expressions. Then Lyra stood. She did not wait for permission. She did not bow. Her voice was clear. "Reckless. No, it was brave. It was necessary. Without Dr. Cade, we would be drifting corpses in the void. You call it reckless only because it was not your way." The leader's gaze hardened. "Lyra, you go too far." But she stepped forward, golden eyes burning. "No. I have been silent too long. I will speak now." She turned so her words reached everyone. "We Zevrians have forgotten curiosity. We hide behind rules and ceremony. We call it wisdom, but in truth it is fear. And it was not wisdom that saved us. It was the human will to act, to adapt, to use what is near and make it enough. The hall buzzed with murmurs. Some Zevrians frowned, others listened intently. Lyra lifted her chin proudly. I tasted their food. I touched their tools. I saw their ways. These are not crude habits, they are the foundation of strength. Humanity does not wait for perfection. Humanity creates with what it has. That is why they survive storms. That is why they belong among the stars. And that is why I will keep learning from them no matter what you forbid. A stunned silence filled the chamber. The elders exchanged looks, unsure how to respond. Mason rose slowly, his voice calm but firm. Lyra is right. Humanity has flaws, but we have something worth sharing. We take the ordinary and turn it extraordinary. We make songs from noise, stories from memory, warmth from fire. We are not asking you to admire us. We are asking you to see us. For a long time, the council leader said nothing. Finally, he spoke in a quieter voice. Perhaps there is value in these small truths. Perhaps we judge too quickly. The talk shifted. What had begun as rigid negotiations slowly softened. Trade terms were still discussed, but now there was talk of cultural exchange. Human teachers invited to Zevrian academies, Zevrian art shared on Earth. The tone changed, not rivalry but curiosity. When the session ended, Mason stepped into the wide corridor, exhausted yet relieved. The weight of tension seemed lighter now. He thought he would walk alone, but Lyra hurried after him. You spoke well, she said, smiling faintly. They listened, even if they will not admit it. Mason chuckled. They listened because of you. You stood up when no one else would. She tilted her head, her glowing eyes soft. Perhaps. But I could not have spoken without your small things to guide me. From her robe she pulled out a new item, another human ration pack. She turned it over in her hands like a precious treasure. What is inside this one? She asked with her usual curiosity. Mason laughed tiredly. That one? Chilly, spicy, it's not sweet like chocolate. It's hot. It burns the tongue a little. Lyra's eyes widened with delight. Hot food? Fire in the mouth? Then I must taste it. They sat on a bench near a tall crystal window. Mason opened the pack and handed her a spoonful. She took it without hesitation. The moment the chili touched her tongue, Lyra's face froze. Her eyes went wide, her skin shimmered, and then tears welled up. She coughed, heat filling her throat. For a second, Mason panicked. Are you all right? Lyra gasped, then burst into laughter, even as tears ran down her cheeks. It burns. It is pain and joy at once. It stings, but it sings. Human, what is this madness? Mason grinned. That's chili. Some humans love it. Some can't stand it. But it reminds us that even pain can carry flavor. Even fire can be shared. Lyra wiped her eyes, still laughing. Strange creatures, you humans. You turn suffering into delight. You turn small bites into great meaning. You are not like us. Maybe not, Mason admitted softly. But maybe that's why we need each other. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the stars glitter outside the window. Ships drifted in the distance, symbols of two civilizations now tied together by more than trade or power. Lyra's voice softened. One day our peoples will tell the story of these talks. They will remember the arguments, the sabotage, the danger. But I think they will also remember something else. They will remember that a human gave me chocolate, and I asked, "What's this? Let me taste it." And that small moment opened a door greater than any treaty. Mason looked at her, smiling gently. Maybe that's how history really changes. Not in grand speeches, but in small things. Lyra nodded, her golden eyes glowing like warm embers. Yes, small things. The heart of humanity. The council would meet again tomorrow. More words, more arguments, more politics. But Mason no longer feared the outcome. He knew something had already begun. something that could not be undone, not because of ships or weapons, not because of wealth or power, but because an alien girl had tasted human food, and in its flavor discovered a truth no one could ignore. And as Lyra lifted the chili again, grinning through her tears, she declared once more with joy, "Human, what's this? Let me taste it." This time Mason laughed with her. For the first time since arriving among the Zevrians, he felt certain. Humanity's place among the stars was not a question anymore. It was a story already being written, one taste at a time.